Hey everyone, it's Lisa from Primitive Gatherings, and today I'm here with Kathy Decker.
Hello.
And we are going to demonstrate Y seams using our Outlander Star templates. We have two quilts made with these templates. One is Outlander and the other one is American Outlander. And you can find them in this American Gatherings book. That is just our newest book out, and it goes with our fabric line called American Gatherings as well. So one of the things I want to bring Kathy in and talk about, so we can make it kind of like a little informal, so we can cover everything, is how people are afraid of Y seams.
Yeah, I was too until this is really my first experience with Y seams. And the first couple are a little tense, but once you get past the first two, it's good.
Yeah, so you know how forgiving it kind of is too. Yeah. And just to be even to prove, like, I have made these quilts so long ago that I had to do a little section piecing this morning just to make sure I could do it again. But it is very reassuring that it can be done. And keep in mind that these pieces are big.
They are.
They're very big.
These blocks go fast because, you know, you're doing such a large chunk at a time, and when you're done, then you've got, how big is that block? It's about
24 inches or something like that. Yeah, 9, yeah. Or 36 even, 9 times 4, 36, I think.
It looks a lot more involved than it feels when you're making it.
Yeah. So just let's kind of back up to the beginning. These quilts that I made are based on two antiques that I have, and we'll go more in depth with them later on, but they are hanging in the back here. And I really wanted to keep the integrity of the initial antique intact, so I kind of wanted to not change it too much. So I wanted to do random strip piecing. That's kind of what was done in the antique one. But there's other things we can do. I say mine is strip piecing because all mine are the exact same cut, 1.5 on the pattern, and then sewn together in random red, white, and blue, not paying attention to anything. But you could pay attention. It could be more planned out if you wanted to, using the strips. But then Kathy has made a couple quilts using what you call
string piecing.
String piecing, which is a very old-fashioned technique of using up scraps. So if you have lots of scraps in your collection, this is a great way to get rid of some of them.
Right.
Yeah. So show them your string piecing.
I started doing this kind of for a couple reasons. I do my own long arming, and when you long arm, you know, you've got the extra 4 inches all the way around the quilt. And to me, that's just too much to just throw away when you're done. So I kind of, once I'm done trimming my quilt and everything, you've got pieces that are kind of 4-ish inches. I trim them down and then put them in boxes marked strings. And I've got three different boxes, one for lights, one's for darks, and one's for flannels. And so what I do for these Outlander Star
templates,
I just cut a piece of paper using the template.
So I just want to stop and point out the paper template is also in the book, and you can purchase the acrylic templates if you want, which is a really good idea if you make more than one. I mean, this is going to get pretty beat up if you keep cutting around it. And if you do use the paper template, make sure you put some double-sided tape on to help grip it to the fabric. So that's how, if I'm just going to do a couple, I would use the paper one. But these are really fun, so we think we think you're going to like the template.
Yeah. So I just kind of rough cut some paper templates, and what these are is phone books or any kind of like annual reports that you might get or whatever. You want kind of cheap paper. You don't want real heavy copy paper.
Yeah, like the really good stuff.
Yeah,
you want,
and if you don't have phone books or anything, you can just buy some newsprint and use that. You might have to tape it together because this is fairly long, but this is an opened annual report is what I made it. So I made paper templates, and what I do then is I just start sewing. Put your first strip down, lay the next strip face down on it, and then sew along that seam. And really, you can use any seam allowance. I try to keep it a 1/4 of an inch, but it's very forgiving.
If it wavers a little bit.
Right. If you know, if you want to put 3/8 and then flip it open. And so this one is half done. So I've started here and I've gone to this end, and then I'll turn it around and start adding strips and go to this end. And the main thing is you want to go past the edges of your paper maybe an inch.
And cover the whole
And
triangle.
cover the whole paper.
Yeah.
And then when you're done, just take your template. Where's the one that's... Take your template, lay it on here, and then trim around. And then you've got a section just like this.
All right.
And so that's it. And, you know, people say, oh, I don't want to remove the paper. It's not that hard. You pull on, well, it will be on.
On camera it is, yeah.
So you just pull on it, and they kind of split apart, and then you can
Do you shorten that stitch length?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do it about 1.5 inches, or
Okay.
1.5.
1.5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a little shorter. I probably didn't do it quite enough on this
Yeah.
example. And the other thing I do when I'm strip piecing is I use it to clean off the thread on my bobbins. I put my long arm bobbin as the top thread of my Juki, and then put my Juki bobbins in the bobbin case, and that way I can clean off bobbins. And so I just strip piece until I've got maybe a dozen bobbins cleaned up. You know, they're only half full. So
Right,
then I've
right.
got all these empty bobbins, and it's great.
Yeah, even your regular machine bobbin will thread on the top,
Right.
and you can use it if you don't have a long arm
Right.
bobbin like Kathy does.
You have to stack them up because that thread pin is tapered. So you need to get it high enough that it
that
doesn't
they come
bind
off.
up. Yeah,
Good tip.
yeah.
All right.
So that's why I string piece, to get rid of all my scraps.
Right, and now, like I said, we're going to show you some of Kathy's quilts when using her method coming up. But I do want to point out how I pressed these. Everything is flat, wide open, and pretty organized there. So, all right. So now I think we can start. I'm going to just make one little star quilt with some extra inner border strips left over from the Outlander quilt, and I'm just going to make one little kind of baby size quilt with this. So I'm using the exact same measurements that are in the pattern to do your 1/4 square triangles here and then your corner squares. So what you want to do is you need to mark your 1/4 inch points on your triangles and on your diamonds. Now I like to use this friction pen or something that will iron off. Pencil is fine too, but with this white I kind of want something that's going to disappear. So you can mark a couple different ways. If you're really good, you can just eyeball that. You know where 1/4 inch right there. Or you can take your template, put it on here, make a little dot where that is, and mark those on there as well. Just enough so you can see them. Because we are not going to stitch past this, only if it's on the outside, but you're going to stitch from to the point here. This one we can go all the way out because it's an end seam here. So that one I stitch all the way out. All right, now, Kathy, just to make sure we kind of do this the same. When you do this, does it matter if you do these two, or do you do these two, or how do you do yours?
I don't think it really matters, but I do this one going to the center, then I do this one going to the center, and then I do that one going that way.
Right.
But I'm not sure it makes a difference.
Yeah, because sometimes I like to do this one, and then I do that one, and then I do that one. So I don't think it really makes a difference, whatever you seem more comfortable with. So I'm just going to flip this one on itself here, and I'm going to match up that point and grab my pins. All right, right here. And I just kind of like to just poke my pin in and poke my pin in that hole and line that up like that. Take this one here. And you will find sometimes that you have to give it a little bit of a... So see how I have a little bit of play in the white? I'm going to put that one down to the feed dogs. So now I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I am going to stitch from this point to that point. Okay, so I'm ready to stitch, and because this is my outer point, I don't have to start here. I'm going to start off the end here, and I'm going to stitch right to my marked point here, and I'm going to do one little back stitch and then one stitch forward. All right, so you can all see where I stopped, right at that point. Now I think your first inclination is to run to the iron to make sure it all worked out, but I think it works better if you don't press anything until the end. All right, Kathy, you want to hand me the other one over? All right, so here's this one, like that. So I'm going to just kind of finger press that back, lay this one here. My point is on that side, but I can still see it from this side. Hook that one up so they're on top of each other. And then open this one up, poke your pin right at that dot, and then right at this one here, right at that corner, and keep it open. So I'm just going to pull this back this way and pin that out of the way so I can get right where my pin is. And sometimes it's easier to stitch from one side than the other, and I like this side better. So I'm going to put my needle right down at that 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to go forward and back. All right, now I'm going to stitch that out. And this is the one I can run right off the edge. Take my pins out, check it out, looks good. Now my last seam is this one right here. So I'm going to come, open that up a little bit. So there's my 1/4 of an inch, so that's my starting point. And I'm going to line these guys up here. Right there is my point. All right, so I'm going to start on that point on this one. Take my pin out. And if you're really, really picky, you can line up all your 1-inch stripes here and make sure they land together the best they can. Sometimes you can just eyeball them. And I think because of my antiques, I'm really not like concerned that they match exactly perfect. So right at that point now I'm going to go back and then one forward. Right at that. So I didn't sew off like you normally would in any of your piecing. Okay, moment of truth. There's, look at that. Now we can press it. All right, we're here at the ironing board and we have to figure out which way is the best way to press these seams. And I think there is no correct way. I think it's kind of like sometimes where they fall or which way they naturally want to go. So if you are an extreme seam opener, that definitely can be done. So this whole one here was pressed open, pressed open, pressed open. And then the other way would be to do it is press this seam open here and then push these toward the strip piecing here. So either way is acceptable. I think either way distributes the same amount of bulk.
Right. You kind of want to maybe think about how you want to quilt this too. I generally want to stitch in the ditch, so I want to push my seam away as opposed to open.
Right. So, and some of us who just piece, we don't naturally think about that.
Right.
But you being a long armor, that's a great point that, you know, you might want to figure out which way you want this to go. So I'm going to start off with my strip stick, and this is to help me press seams open. If you don't have one of these, I strongly suggest them. So that seam went open nicely. And then I think I'm going to take Kathy's idea here and press these in. And in this corner here, just kind of push that and lay that flat, and it flattens down beautifully. And then you always want to come to this side and give it another press to make sure you got all that out of the seam allowance there. So it submitted nicely.
It did. Now you need to stop and admire how nicely that came
Yeah,
together.
that is pretty nice there. I did have a little practice this morning, like I said, though. All right, so then, of course, you just keep doing your Y seams when you do this now. So the next one that you're going to want to do is put in this corner here. I would just do it here, and then you can do this whole seam at the same time, right? I think you can do that. Or stop and then pivot, or do however that looks. But I would probably do this half and then that half. And
That's
then,
how I did it.
and then do it as one.
I made
Yeah.
two
So
of
follow
those.
the directions in the book. Yeah, so those are correct. But have no fear of that Y seam. There is a little bit of fluctuation that you can manipulate and pin, and if you have a little bit of fullness, just always put that toward your feed dogs, and that'll nicely ease that in. But I can't wait to finish this now. This has been hanging around here for a long time, so I'm glad to finally be able to finish that. So let's talk about the quilts they can make now that we show them how easy those Y seams are, and not to be afraid of a quilt that has a Y seam. I do have a short little story to tell though. My sister-in-law Tina, she had found this quilt pattern and she wanted to make it. And it was like these beautiful, almost like lone stars, little lone stars. And she's like, do you think I can make this one? I'm like, sure, you can make that. And I didn't tell her there was all these Y seams in it, right? Because if you say something, oh yeah, those Y seams are hard, then everybody's like, oh no, I'm never doing a quilt with Y seams in. But she didn't know any better. So I just showed her how to do it. And then when it was all done and beautiful, I said, just so you know, I've never done a quilt like that. But she did it, and she wasn't afraid because I didn't put any misconceptions in her mind as a beginner that she couldn't do it. So as I said earlier, the inspiration for these Outlander quilts came from two of my antique quilts that are in my collection. And I believe it's a great way to honor the people from the past who have made these quilts, to bring them out, to share them with you, to recreate from them. And I'm just amazed at what they accomplished way back when without all the cool tools that we have today. So let's visit these quilts a little bit just to show you how wonderful these inspirational pieces are. So this first one here is I'd say 1930s, 40s version of the Outlander. So this is one big star, but in this corner here, you have to piece with the other little template. But don't think that is any harder. It just went together super nice. But how nice is this quilt? It is machine quilted. I believe it was a top, and then somebody most recently quilted it. Kind of willy-nilly, random. I don't think it's a pantograph.
No, I don't think so. I think it's just loops.
Yep, they just did loops. And guess what? It's a quilt now. So I like that fact. And it does look old. I think it's because of what batting they used. They made something that, you know, made it look old. But this has probably been quilted in the last 20 years or
But
so.
these are feed sack prints, so
Yeah.
these were 30s.
Yes, 30s and 40s, I believe. And look at this busy piece they use to set those blocks. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful gray. So it worked. Now this one back here is called, this is where we got the Outlander. So this is Outlander and this is American Outlander that we've recreated. So how fun is this? It's kind of a rendition of that starburst pattern that's out there, but it has these different pieces in right here. These are templates in the pattern, but again, the quilt worked up gorgeously. Okay, so let's show our American Outlander so we can show them that. And don't think that this has to just be red, white, and blue. We all know you can make this in school colors or your favorite colors. Or it could also be string piece like Kathy's was. Right. And then you don't have to worry about trying to match these up, which I really don't. I try to get them to hook up, but if they don't, I'm not all crazy about it if they don't. But that is the American Outlander. All right, so this is Outlander, which is this one here recreated. So how nice is that? This one is made in flannel with my Farmhouse Gatherings flannels and quilted by Linda Hershka from the Quilted Pineapple. I think this would be great in somebody's office, like behind their desk. Okay, so those are my two quilts that I have made from that. And then I had another antique inspiration in case you just want to do all stars. So maybe my next fabric line we do this with just all stars. So this is, I believe, the littler American Outlander template, that one, for these. And you can just do a table runner, maybe 3 of them would be awesome on a table, or 5, or 1. But I like how they kind of plan this one. Even though it's scrappy, they do have a plan on this one. So you can plan as little or as much as you want.
Yeah, it makes a big difference having that yellow center, doesn't it?
Yeah, now look at this is hand quilted, so we'll kind of show you the hand quilting. You see that, Kaylee? Mm-hmm. All right. This one I got in California, I remember at an antique shop. When I was with Roxanne, we found this one. Okay, so now Kathy's going to show you some of her creations using the template or parts of whatever, right?
Yeah, right. Well, I did several string pieced ones, and then I wanted to try one with just using the template to cut a solid piece of fabric, and that worked great too. So this makes a really quick baby quilt.
Yes.
Because, you know, this is a huge block, and you only need 4 of them, and then I just added some borders and quilted it.
Right. I also think like recliner quilt too, like for Quilts of Valor would be really nice to do. You could just do diamonds in red, white, and blue. Solid, you know, one piece instead of strip piecing.
And then this one is another.
Oh, this is so much fun. I can't, you're not going to believe how many she's done. All right, so let's make this.
Well, it's kind of trying out different quilting designs on them too. These were kind of to practice different things. So this is American Outlander. So this is made out of the little star template, and then this, or the little diamond template.
Diamond template.
And then this one is the big one. And to construct these, you make the three sides, and then your 4th corner makes this corner
right,
of the star.
So it's replacing this corner right here.
So it's really very easy to do.
But look at Kathy's quilting. She's practicing her filling. It looks like feathers and loops.
Yeah.
And do you have a name for that?
No, just.
And then I see you, you're trying your hand at machine binding.
I did, yes. It's not as good as the ones we've had in the trunk shows lately.
I know.
We'll get there.
We knew we got to get her to teach us how to do that.
This is the first one.
Yep.
Outlander Star, right?
Yeah, and you did this one with 1 inches or no? You did whatever.
No, I use whatever size.
Yeah.
For string piecing, I save anything bigger than 1 inch, and I usually try to have them less than 2.5, 2.5 or less. I think if you get any wider, it looks a little too wide, but that's just my preference. It's not, you know, a rule or
So
anything.
very random on here. Some are wide, some are skinny.
And they don't meet at all, you know, and I don't have to try to meet them.
No, that's what the fun thing about it.
Right. And for these, I usually, you know, and this is just the way I like to do it. I use all colors or all light background type. I don't mix them too much in these because I feel like that might get a little bit too much. And I was just practicing some modern quilting things on this to see what works where. Good. This one turned out to be my favorite. I was using up my scrap neutral box, and so just did them all out of the scrap neutrals, and I wasn't sure the gray and the tan would work together, but I think it's okay.
I think it does,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah. Do you want me to flip this up?
And then I used the blue primitive muslin for the outside.
Yeah, and I love how that shading looks in there. Yeah, that
Yeah.
turned out really good.
And then I tend to, for these, just meander them. Really, for the string piecing, you want to make sure that every seam has some quilting on it, just to hold it down.
Hold it down.
So I just tend to meander this part with matching thread, and then do.
So when you're sewing the dark to the dark, do you make sure you have a dark thread in here?
I do, yeah.
yeah.
For this, I probably used a light thread
Right.
for these, but then when I got to this part, I switched to the
Right, because you don't want to
navy.
see like these
Right.
little piecings in there of your light thread. So I always try to remember to switch my thread when you're sewing dark borders on. When the dark goes to the dark, that's when it's really important to have the right color thread in there. But wow, very nice.
Thank you.
So come on back over here. We'll say goodbye. So thank you so much for tuning in with us today and watching our YouTube video. Make sure you subscribe and like, and that gives us lots of opportunities to share all of our different techniques and ideas and inspirations with you. So I hope you liked our little video today and come back for more.